Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us for volume 2 of, we haven't even named it yet. I'll come back in. But thanks for joining us for the second episode. And in today's episode, I want to go over your rights and the do's and the don'ts if you have an encounter with the police on the street or wherever. When the police are about to arrest you, they're supposed to read you your Miranda rights. Miranda rights come from a United States Supreme Court case, Miranda versus Arizona. I don't know the quote or the citation, but there are certain rights that need to be passed along to our prospective criminal defendant. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you free of charge. Understanding those rights, do you wish to talk to us? Now, let's start off with you have the right to remain silent. This is serious. They're not telling you this for nothing. You have the right to remain silent. I would always advise, if you find yourself in a situation where you're being arrested by the police, you need to exercise that right and you need to remain silent. The police are not your friends. They may offer you a sandwich. They may offer you something to drink. They may even offer you a cigarette. But that's to butter you up, to get you talking, so you can incriminate yourself. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. This is real stuff right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a joke. If you say something, I've been in situations personally where I've made little comments during an encounter with the police, and those comments came up in court. I got served notice that this statement was going to be used against me at trial. And it was an innocent statement that didn't mean anything, but the statement got misinterpreted. And the state was trying to use it against me. So let's not even play games. Don't try to play games. This isn't a movie. This isn't the Usual Suspects with the police had Kaiser Sose in custody and he talked his way out of it and all of that. This isn't that type of situation. This is real life. We're dealing with a system that's out to get black and brown people. They're using that system as a weapon of mass destruction, whether you believe it or not. I know from firsthand experience. I've been around it. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes and heard it with my own 2 ears. This system is a weapon of mass destruction. We need to avoid it like the plague. At all costs, we need to stay away. But if we happen to get caught up and we're arrested, we need to keep our mouths shut. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. I'm going to tell you a little story about a situation a friend of mine was involved in. We were out in Maspeth, New York, in the borough of Queens. Now, we were doing some things we shouldn't have been doing. I'll be the first, I can admit that now. I have no exposure to any criminal liability because the statute of limitations ran out years and years ago. But I want to share this experience to drive home the point I'm trying to make about remaining silent. We were in Maspeth, Queens. We went to FedEx location. A friend of mine ran in, came out with a package. Through the package, I drove one friend, and two other friends were in another vehicle. One guy was a driver, the other guy was a passenger. The passenger of my vehicle jumped out and ran into the FedEx location. A few minutes later, the second passenger in the second vehicle jumped out and went into FedEx. Well, moments later, my guy came out carrying a package. When he got close to my vehicle, I popped the trunk. He threw the box in the trunk. He closed the trunk. He came to the passenger door. He opened up the door, and as he was getting into the seat, he happened to glance at the side mirror on the passenger door, and he saw somebody squatting down, approaching the vehicle. So he says, "Oh shit, the police." He jumps out of the vehicle and takes off down the street. I look in my rearview mirror and I see the police are right at the back of the trunk. They're right there. So I just put my hands on the steering wheel and remain, still. They come, they open up the door, they snatch me out of the vehicle. They bring me around to the passenger side on the sidewalk. They pat me down, make sure I don't have any sharp objects. They go in my pockets, pull everything out of my pockets. One of the other officers runs around to the driver's side, reaches down by the side of the door and pops the trunk, goes into the trunk, gets the box out that my buddy had put in there. Now, they got me while this is happening, passenger number 2 in the second vehicle comes out of FedEx. He's empty-handed. He doesn't have anything. Now, when I see this, I'm relieved because I'm saying to myself, good, this guy didn't do anything. He came out. The driver of the second vehicle saw what was going on, saw the heat that was going on with my vehicle. The police gave pursuit on the guy that was the passenger in my vehicle. Now, these weren't just ordinary police, by the way. These were feds. This was the Secret Service. They chased my friend down the block, and they disappeared. But one of them had a walkie-talkie. So I was hearing updates on the walkie-talkie. Somebody was asking, "Did you get the guy yet?" They said, "Nah, we're looking. We're." So I was literally praying, please let this guy get away. Excuse me. Let this guy get away. This guy has to get away. Now, while that's happening, I see the other passenger, the second vehicle, come out, and he walks past us. He's empty-handed. He walks all the way, it must have been 100 yards down the street. And one of the feds who's dealing with me happens to look up, and he sees this guy way down the street. And he screams out, "Hey, you!" And my man stops and turns around. And the feds yells out, "Get over here!" And my man freezes. I could see he doesn't know whether to run or come back. He just freezes like a deer in the headlights. So the feds run down there and grab him, and they bring him back. Now, as they're bringing him back, I thought to just say out loud, like I was saying for myself, but really speaking for my man, "Yo, I want a lawyer." And hopefully he would get the hint and say the same thing before they even start questioning him. As if you invoke your right to an attorney with the feds, more likely than not, they're not going to question you. And if they wouldn't have questioned him, they would have had to let him go. Why? Because he didn't do anything. He didn't come out with any boxes. He didn't do anything. And He aborted whatever he was attempting to do. He aborted. What happened was the driver of the second vehicle called him up and said, yo, abort the mission, abort the mission. There's heat outside. There's heat outside. And the second driver, he couldn't just stick around and wait. He gave him the alert, and he got out of there as he was supposed to do. And my man was supposed to come out and just keep going. The first mistake he made, when the Fed screamed out, hey, you, he stopped and turned around. He should have just kept walking. Like, this guy can't possibly be talking to me, number one. Number two, there's no way that they would have been able to prove that my man heard the Fed scream, hey, you. No matter how loud he screamed it. You don't know what this guy's hearing is. You know what I'm saying? So all he had to, I didn't hear anything. You know what I'm saying? And when I heard, hey, you, why would I think somebody's talking to me? I don't know anybody around here. That guy wasn't talking to me. But he stopped and turned around, and the Fed said, get over here. The Fed just had a hunch. The Fed didn't know what was going on. He had a hunch. And he took the hunch, and the hunch paid off. Now they got my man, they bringing him back. As they bringing him past me, I'm thinking I should start saying out loud, yo, I want a lawyer. What's going on here? I want a lawyer. I want a lawyer. Hoping that my man catches on and he says he wants a lawyer. If he would have done that, he would have went home that day. I didn't make that statement out loud. I just remained silent. I didn't say anything. I exercised my right to remain silent. They take us back inside. They got me in one room interviewing me. They got him in another room. By now, I'm hearing the Feds on the walkie-talkie saying, we lost him. They lost my man who was riding in the vehicle with me. He shook him and he got away. So I know how I'm going to handle the Feds, when they try to interview me. I'm going to tell them exactly what they know. Yo, that guy, I told them when they asked me what was going on, I said, listen, I was seeing a girl in Harlem, and when I left her apartment, I got on the elevator. When I came down to the lobby and the door opened, there was Joe. Joe was standing in the lobby of the hallway in King Towers, a New York City housing development in Harlem. And we hadn't seen each other in years. We used to be co-workers. We worked at a courier service, a messenger service in Manhattan. So the Fed was like, what's his last name? I said, I don't know his last name. We was on a first name basis. But I know that if you're looking for him, you could probably find him in King Towers, where I was at. We're from the Bronx. We don't even be in King Towers like that. That's why I fed the misinformation. And I knew that my man got away. So I knew that box, that was his box. He got that box. When they asked me about that box, I said, yeah, that box. I saw him put a box. I said, yo, when I met him in the lobby in Harlem, he asked me, could I give him a lift? One of the Feds jumped in and interjected. How much did he pay you? Like I was going to say he gave me money. I said he didn't pay me anything, man. I just did him a favor. I didn't know where I was going. He was just directing me. Turn left, turn right. He put me on the highway. He brought me off the highway. Turn left, turn right. Then he said, yo, pull over right here. When I pulled over, he said, I'll be right back in a couple of minutes. I didn't know where he was going or what he was doing. When he came back out holding the box, I popped the trunk. He threw it in the box. Oh, that's what this is about, that box? Oh, no, please don't tell me it was drugs in that box. I'm telling the Feds, please. I knew what was in the box, but I'm trying to throw them off. Now I'm on my usual suspects. I'm feeling like Kaiser Soze. I'm like, I hope it wasn't drugs in there. Oh, I want you to get them. I'm telling you, go to King Towers. You can find them. By now, I know my man is on a train on his way to the Bronx. He's on his way to Castle Hill in the Bronx. So I'm feeding the Feds misinformation. So meanwhile, they got my other man, who was the passenger in the second vehicle, they got him in another interview room and they're interviewing him. They asked him what he was doing. He should have just said, yo, I want a lawyer. He said he was on the street in Harlem and somebody approached him and asked him, did he want to make a couple of $100 picking up a package? So then they tried to work him to try to get whatever information. You know how the feds work. They try to tie everybody in. They was asking me about the second vehicle. I said there was no second vehicle. They're trying to tell me, yes, there was a second vehicle. I said it was me and Joe that was the passenger in my vehicle. There was no second vehicle. I'm not going to volunteer information. They tried to tell me I knew the other guy, the passenger who they had in the other room, and blah, 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 and this, that, and the third. I'm denying everything. Once he told them that somebody offered him a couple of $100 to pick up a package, he talked himself into a conspiracy charge. So the feds charged him and an unidentified co-conspirator with attempted interstate theft of commerce. He talked himself into that, ladies and gentlemen. All he had to do was remain silent or invoke his right to counsel, to a lawyer. Now, they had me in that interview room for like 2 or 3 hours, and finally, I got tired of playing around with them, and I said, yo, are you guys charging me with anything? And whoever the boss was in the room said, cut him loose. They didn't have me on anything. They knew that the guy that got away went in there and got the box, and all he did was put it in the trunk. I never handled the box. I didn't admit to the box. I didn't give them any information when the guy tried to say, how much did he give you? You're not going to catch me with that one. He didn't give me anything. I just was doing an old friend a favor. After like 2 hours, are y'all guys charging me with anything? The boss told them, cut him loose. And they cut me loose. And I went back to the car, and I got in the car and drove off. And when I was driving off, I called the driver of the second vehicle. He had made his way. I don't know how many of you guys out there are familiar with New York City, but he had made his way all the way from Maspeth, Queens. And this guy's from out of state. I'm not going to say where he's from because I'm trying to protect people's identities and all of that. This guy's from out of state, the Midwest. He made his way from Maspeth, Queens up to East Harlem, New York, driving. And he was like, yo, I'm in front of your girlfriend's sister's house. I said, yo, stay put. I'll be right there. And they kept the other passenger and they took him to MDC. That's where they're holding P. Diddy right now. And he spent the night there, and then they took him to court in the morning in Brooklyn, Eastern District of New York Federal Court, and they arraigned him and they released him. You know, this wasn't a serious offense or anything, but he still talked himself into that charge by saying that someone offered him money and he accepted the offer to go pick up a package. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything, man. Obviously, he didn't know what to say. And he said something that talked him into a charge. He ended up getting 6 months probation back in his home state. But all of that could have been avoided if he would have just kept his mouth shut. So if you ever have a situation where you get stopped by the police, yo, look at me. I'm middle-aged. I'm still being harassed by the police. I'm still being harassed by the police. You know, I get pulled over from time to time, and police want to get extra with it. And it just reminds me of that KRS-One song. Black Cop. My grandfather had to deal with the police. My great-grandfather had to deal with the cops. My great-great-great-great. When it's going to stop? These are things that some of us are going to have to deal with, it looks like, our entire lives. You see how I'm dressed right now. I could be dressed in a button-up suit, a button-up shirt with slacks, some shoes on, and a blazer, minding my business. And the police just want to harass you. Don't engage them. Better yet, invoke your right to an attorney from the jump. They run up on me saying something, listen, speak to my attorney, man. If they don't have anything, they keep it moving. They're not going to have anything but me nowadays because I'm not doing anything, because I learned, I figured it out. It took me much longer than it should have taken me, but I know the dangers and the pitfalls of getting ensnared in the system. And it's never going to happen to me again. And I'm making these videos because I don't want it to happen to anyone again. Why would anyone with good common sense want to put themselves in a position where they're facing legal ramifications and they're facing some significant legal exposure to prison time, and you're in a system that's made to screw you? You're not going to get a fair one. So you're playing with a stacked deck. You hear some people talking about the system is rigged and all of that. The system isn't rigged for people like that. The system is rigged against black and brown people, not white men. So you have the right to remain silent, and you should always exercise that right. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Please share these videos, pass these videos along, because together we can stop our people from getting caught up in the system. That's my goal. That's my way of giving back. I'm trying to prevent other people from having to go through and experience some of the things that I experienced during the course of my life. And if I can stop one person from going through, then it's well worth it to me. So if you're doing anything, or you know someone that's doing anything, please share these videos with your loved ones and talk to them and try to convince them it's not worth it. Thanks. Take care. I'll see you on the next episode.